A family of a black teen that was gunned down by the police awarded $19 million. Let me take you to that scenario. Put up the picture full mass of a young man who still should be with us, but is not. A St. Louis jury has awarded nearly $19 million to a family of 18-year-old Mansur Ball-Bey. Mansur was shot and killed by two St. Louis police officers in 2015. He should not have been. During the 2015 raid targeting guns and drugs, officers claimed that the young Mansur aimed a handgun with an extended ammunition magazine as he ran out of the back door of a home on Walton Avenue. Mortally wounded, Mansur ran from the back yard of the home through a gangway to an adjacent front yard, then collapsed dead. He was pronounced dead at 18. His pistol, allegedly in his possession while running, was later found in the backyard near a dumpster in an alley. Officer Richard Booker Jr., an off-duty cop for the city, who witnessed the chase and heard the fatal shots, testified that Mansur actually tossed the weapon there. However, Mansur collapsed in the front yard immediately after being shot in the back by Chandler, which proves he was actually unarmed at the time. He was unarmed at the time he was, in fact, murdered, in my opinion. DNA proves it was not fired at that time, however. Okay? Now, quote, Attorney Jack Waldron said, quote, he was running away. He was running away. The attorney said this in his opening statement, pointing out the gun was found 164 feet away from where Mansur died. Quote, he was unarmed and he was no threat to anybody. End quote. The officers who opened fire are white and are identified as Ronald Vaughn, 29 years of age, and Kyle Chandler, 33 years of age, who fired the fatal shot. Both graduated from the police academy together in 2008. Put up the circuit attorney. Her name is Jennifer Joyce. So Jennifer, the circuit attorney, declined to charge the officers, stating there was, quote, insufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. This was her exact quote, insufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Stop there. When prosecutors utilize that phrase, understand that is coded language to let you know the fix is in. Why? Any first-year law student will tell you a prosecutor's job is not to charge a case based on the expectation of a reasonable doubt that a jury may or may not consider. You see, that's getting ahead of their own bias. Their bias is prosecutorial. Their job or their oath is to uphold what? Justice. So perhaps if somebody commits murder, but you know they're so popular with the community, they would never be convicted, a prosecutor can just say, well, we don't believe that the evidence would support a conclusion based on the reasonable doubt standard in criminal court. That would be insane, would it not? Put a picture back up. So when you hear that term, when you hear that quote, insufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, they didn't say they don't believe the cops did it. They're not saying they don't believe these cops are guilty of anything. How many press conferences have been held where the prosecutor or the police chief, they clearly say who they believe is guilty and they say nothing about a potential jury. So that quote, was proof of what was happening. So she says insufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they did not act in self-defense. In a statement, Joyce explained that there was, quote, no independent, credible witness that could be put in front of a grand jury or regular jury who contradicts police statements. She said in 2016, adding, quote, none of the other witnesses had a clear view at the moment when Mansur was shot. Ma'am, you sound like a damn defense attorney talking about the credibility of one human being as opposed to the other. You really believe that cops have that much strength in their testimony in front of a jury today? Their testimony is so, let's just say, fluid at best, up and down, that a police report is not allowed to be entered as evidence in a criminal trial. Now, in 2020, it's called hearsay. The cop has to testify to it themselves. In 2020, the victim's father, Dennis Ball-Bey, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the officers. Once again, extrajudicial remedy by the family. Also, it was filed against the police chief and the city. On Friday, a jury awarded Mansur Ball-Bey's family $6.25 million in their wrongful death suit, plus $12.5 million in a punitive damages suit, totaling $18.7 million, according to the attorney Javad Kazili. Now, Kazili said the family was actually pleased with the verdict, noting that the jury reached its decision in just 90 minutes. That's it, 90 minutes. He added that the $18.75 million award was far greater than the city's initial $450,000 settlement offer. So what do you have? You really think a civil jury is somehow holistically different than a criminal jury? No, same people. They get them from the same voter files, the voter registration database. The person who prosecuted this in civil court is not an actual trained prosecutor. It's a civil litigator. But that civil litigator was able to present such damning evidence that the jury of peers, they came to a conclusion that this prosecutor claims never would have happened. Now, granted, in civil court, there's a different standard of reasonable doubt, or what we call a preponderance of evidence in the civil case. But the reality is people are people. So we can cite those rules and regulations all day. If somebody believes you did it, they're going to say you did it. If they believe you did not do it, they're going to say you did not do it. All right, young man obviously should be alive today. He is not. No amount of money will bring him back. The family has been grieving for many years, and finally they got this symbol of justice. Once again, we are met with the reality of one leader who made one decision that obviously went against the very ethical and moral code of that office. And then a civil litigator is able to successfully prosecute the case based on the family creating an extrajudicial remedy. What say you?
I just look at the sort of systemic abuses happening here, where you go from the cops, where they get a freaking fake evidence talking about the kid was running away with a gun, clearly shown to be at best, just incompetence, at worst, a coordinated and planned cover-up, a way to manufacture evidence, which is just, these are the guys tasked with the authority of, gathering evidence and proof of crimes here. Like, they are the last sort of stand here. And if these guys have no integrity in that way, that kind of blows up the entire bargain in terms of the citizens and the people we grant this authority to. And then, of course, it goes up the chain to the DA's office, who can blithely say, oh, look, we don't think we can convict, as if the evidence is the only reason they ever go to trial for stuff. A lot of times they go to trial just to show you guys exactly, expose all of the things that did happen. Maybe they don't get a verdict, but at least the truth can be out there in terms of what the evidence is in the case. And for this district attorney to come out and say, oh, we have no interest in doing that. Again, this is just more systemic abuse. And again, you mentioned it, Dr. Richey, even if the burden of proof is much lower in a civil case, the fact that they so easily won so much damages for the family, which can't replace the loss of a loved one, but the fact that they were able to get this much in damages, it just shows you how, rock solid the case was.
Yeah, and the fact they did it in an hour and a half.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.